I'm Vaishnavi and welcome to my music project performance lecture. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to say a special welcome to a few people joining us today. So firstly, Ruchika Ji, who's the first secretary of the Indian High Commission, to Kim, our head of School of Music, Yos, the music project convener, Sally, my flute teacher, and as well as Shobha Auntie and Shekhar Uncle. So Shobha Auntie is my Veena teacher, and they've come all the way from Melbourne. So thank you all for joining me today. So I'd like to give you a bit of an overview of Indian Carnatic music. The classical music of India formally dates back almost 3,000 years. Between the 12th and 16th centuries, two distinct musical styles developed: Carnatic of South India and Hindustani of North India. The music of North India was highly influenced by Persian music and thus differs from the music of the South. However, there is still quite a lot of overlap in terms of the musical elements like scales, rhythms, and instrumentation. Carnatic music was performed predominantly in religious settings. It is based on the human voice, and instrumentalists often imitate the vocal style of performance. Traditionally, they are performed alongside percussion instruments such as mridangam or tabla, with a tambura drone in the background. The Saraswati Veena, or just simply known as the Veena, is a stringed instrument used in Carnatic music. It has four main strings upon which the melody is played, and this is tuned to the tonic and the fifth below. And there are three thala strings, tuned to the tonic, fifth, and the upper tonic, which are strummed occasionally in accordance with the metric thala cycle. Two fundamental ideas of Carnatic music are raga and thala. Raga is a musical scale, and it acts as the melodic framework for compositions and improvisations in Indian classical music. There are 72 Melakarta ragas, or parent ragas, which are the fundamental scales, consisting of all 7 notes of the scale, which are sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. So this is much like solfege or do, re, mi. Janya ragas are derived from the Melakartas, emitting certain notes. The thala is a metric cycle signaled by the beating of the palm and fingers, which I will explain when we get to the performances. The notion of intercultural music is an ever-growing area of study and collaboration, bringing together distinct musical cultures in a common musical setting. Hindustani music entered the world stage through renowned musicians such as sitar player Ravi Shankar, instigating revolutionary collaborations with Western musicians such as Gary Menuhin, Jean-Pierre Rampal, and even the Beatles. Yet, the more traditional and complex nature of Carnatic music has inhibited a similar integration into world music, and occasionally superficial or misinformed incorporation of Carnatic music elements might lead to the dilution or misrepresentation of its essence. An interesting idea posed by Bruno Deschamps is transappropriation in music, where musical elements from one culture are not just borrowed or imitated, but are also creatively reinterpreted and integrated into a new musical context. Specifically, when considering misappropriation of material, we find that often people who have a background in a specific culture, for example, myself having Indian heritage and having training in both Indian and Western music, I may not be able to actually misappropriate any of the material I'm integrating. Therefore, the idea of transappropriation becomes more relevant in intercultural collaborations. It is about showing a willingness to learn something from another culture, and which is an essential part of intercultural musical dialogue. So, in Music Project this semester, this has led me to investigate to what extent the elements of Indian classical music, such as raga, thala, and improvisation techniques, can be used to develop new compositions in intercultural music through transappropriation of the traditional material. So in the following performances, I will take you through a series of different compositions featuring various musical cultures and genres. There are two ways in which I conducted this practical research. The first was through my individual work on Veena, learning the traditional works, as well as on flute, learning intercultural work, which was Night Music by Vanraj Bhatia. And the second was through the intercultural ensemble with Lily, who's here today, who plays shakuhachi, which is the Japanese end-blown flute, and this was under the guidance of our tutor Anna MacDonald. So firstly, I will present some authentic Indian Carnatic works on Veena. The first is Srinivasa Thiruvenkata, composed in the late 19th century. This piece is in the raga Hamsa Nandi, set to Adi Tala. So Hamsa Nandi is a Janya raga, meaning it does not have all 7 notes. Particularly, it doesn't contain pa, which is the fifth of the scale. So it has sa, ri, ga, ma, da, ni, sa. The tala is adi tala, which equates to a common time, having 8 beats. And this is represented by the following hand beats. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can all try together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's essentially done throughout the composition. The lyrics of the song are given here, and they praise the Hindu god Vishnu. And while I won't be singing the lyrics themselves, my strumming patterns will reflect the syllables of the lyrics. But before I play the actual composition itself, I will begin with 2 types of improvisation. So the first is ragam, and this is a free-flowing, unstructured, motivic improvisation based on the raga. The second is thanam, rendered as a rhythmic variation of ragam, with consistent strumming of both the main and the tala strings. And this type of improvisation was originally developed for the veena and later adapted for the voice. And the third type of improvisation will actually occur in the middle of the piece that I'm playing, and this is called swaram. So the idea is to take the start of the opening melody of the song. This takes about 3 beats of the tala cycle, so 1, 2, 3. And then following this, I must fill up the rest of the tala cycle with my own improvised melodies. The end of my improvised phrase then must lead back to the opening melody. So I can either choose to do this for just 1 tala cycle, 2, 3, or keep going for as long as I want. At the end, there is a pattern I repeat 3 times called a tirma, which essentially translates to ending. And this signals the ending of the swaram section, which will then lead back to the last part of the composition. So overall, it's a lot of counting that I'm doing in my head to make sure that the patterns and the melodies all fit in the talam cycle, and that the end of my phrase leads back to the opening melody. And what you'll see from Shobhanti, who's my teacher at the front, she'll be putting talam quite visibly so that I can also visually keep track of what's going on. So the structure of this performance is very traditional, encompassing all 3 types of these improvisations, as well as the main composition itself. So I hope you enjoy the performance.
Veena, she play on the flute, and then she's on the flute. So 3 segments.
and this was written in the mid-20th century. So this piece is in the raga of Shankara, which is essentially equivalent to the Western major scale. And this piece is also an aditala, so just common time. And essentially it's meant to exude the joy of a wedding as opposed to having any sort of religious connotations. So I hope you enjoy. So these two pieces have hopefully highlighted some of the incredibly unique features of Indian classical music. Next, we have Night Music by Vaishnavi Muddam, and this is a solo work for unaccompanied flute written in 1966. Vaishnavi Muddam was an Indian composer best known for his work in Indian cinema, as well as being one of the leading composers of Western classical music in India. His classical works were highly influenced by Indian classical music, particularly Hindustani music. However, given the significant overlap of musical elements between Carnatic and Hindustani music, the connections and influences are clear. This four-movement work is based on two ragas, Mohanam Raga and Paghari Raga. Night music particularly also features major pentatonic scales and uses the major pentatonic nature of Mohanam Raga, and the modulation to Paghari Raga at some times features all 7 of the Ionian notes. However, he still highlights the 5 notes of the major pentatonic scale in this. Both ragas are best suited to be performed during early night, as many ragas have an associated course of day, and thus aligns thematically with the title of the composition, Night Music. Bhattia's use of intricate rhythms, including polyrhythms and nested polyrhythms, very much resemble the intricate subdivisions of Thala and Carnatic music. Another important feature of this work is the inclusion of idiomatic considerations and aesthetics of the bansuri, which is the Indian wooden flute. There are various techniques and fingerings, including grace notes, air flutters, phrasing, pitch bends, and articulations, which are meant to imitate ornaments or gamakas on the bansuri. However, since many of these techniques are easier to execute on a wooden instrument, they've been meticulously notated to capture the essence of them. So while this is a form of imitation to include an authentic element, Bhattia's efforts to accurately notate it highlights the transappropriation of this ornamental material into Western classical music. So the first movement is named Night Music 1 and resembles the ragam or alapana improvisation, which I played at the start of my performance on Veena. This movement has a sense of unmetered improvisation of the raga, introducing each note and revealing qualities of the raga. However, the rhythm and notes are meticulously notated to capture the improvisatory style. The second movement is named Song, introducing more flowing melodies in the raga with some hint of being more measured, as well as a heavy inclusion of various ornaments. The third movement is named Dance, with 7 plus 10 in brackets, and this appears to be highly influenced by the rhythmic nature of Indian classical music. The time signature alternates between having 7 and 10 beats in a bar. Particularly, the 7-beat bars resemble the Thala Mishra Chapu, which is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And in a similar way, Bhattia breaks these bars up into subdivisions of 2 plus 2 plus 3. And towards the end, he marks to get quicker, which signals the approaching of the climax of the piece. And this resembles the climactic nature of the final swaram, which I played on Veena. The final movement is called Night Music 2, and this diverges from the more traditional structure, including a slower ragam-type section at the end. And this signals the Western classical influences in his work, as does the modulation between pentatonic scales and his varied use of dynamics and the phrasing of certain melodies. So overall, the influence of Indian classical music is clear in these various elements through transappropriation of the material. And Bhattia's dedication to accurately conveying these traditional elements enshrines this piece as a prime example of transappropriation in intercultural music. So I hope you enjoy my performance.
So Vaishnavi, can you switch off the microphone with Veena? Even better.
with the opportunity to be a part of the intercultural ensemble, Lily and I were challenged to put together our distinct musical cultures of Indian classical music and Japanese classical music in a collaborative work as part of the chamber music program. So this semester we were able to continue our work from last semester in continuing to develop how we compose in the intercultural musical space. An important observation we initially made was that we wanted it to be an intercultural dialogue, not a fusion piece. Nico Higgins suggests the term fusion is contentious, as it overlaps a series of politicized boundaries of popular, classical, Indian, and Western music. Similarly, in selecting scales to work with, we wanted to base the work on notes and characteristics of a raga and ensure to avoid veering into European notions of polyphony and harmony to bridge the two music systems. This also connected with Toby Wren's idea of musicians interpolating and juxtaposing their cultural materials to play their own culture and beyond their culture. So this meant that transappropriation of the material was at the forefront of our efforts. We were initially inspired by an intercultural work by renowned sitar player Ravi Shankar, who composed a piece called Morning Love for Sitar, an Indian stringed instrument, Western flute, played by Jean-Pierre Rampal, and tabla, an Indian percussion instrument. Since this instrumentation is temporally close to the combination of the Veena and Shakuhachi, we decided to take inspiration from this piece. Therefore, we selected the raga Nattabhairavi, compatible on both Veena and Shakuhachi, and thus we constructed the work around this raga. We have incorporated a few melodies from Morning Love to create the first theme section of our piece. And the thala choice was simple this time, since all material is in common time. The second section is based on a traditional Japanese work called Moon Over the Ruined Castle, in a scale essentially identical to Nattabhairavi. In this section, after playing through the piece once, Lily incorporates a simplified version of swaram improvisation, where she will play the beginning of each phrase and then improvise the rest of the melody while staying in the rhythmic meter. In this way, transappropriation of this technique has occurred. We will begin the performance with two types of improvisation. The free-flowing nature of raga reminded me of conversations with Lily about the types of improvisation on shakuhachi, which are mostly free and unstructured. So we begin with this to introduce the raga, and you will also hear a section of thana, and while this is usually played solo by the veena, in this case we've included some drone-like notes from Lily. So while I anticipated that incorporating the elements of raga, thala, and improvisation would be rather straightforward, I found that I had to shift my approach to the compositional process, ensuring that the complexities of Carnatic music respected the Japanese tradition and elements were transferable through transappropriation. This presents interesting applications to the collaboration of Carnatic music with various musical cultures. Some ragas may be more compatible with some musical cultures, but not with others. And similarly, given the developed nature of thala in Carnatic music, this may not be equally transferable to some musical cultures. However, thala still provides a great rhythmic foundation, and thus is a vital part of the intercultural music space. So, to conclude, Lily and I would like to present our intercultural work that we've developed this semester. We hope you enjoy. concludes my performance lecture. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new.